All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Pat Collette. I'm with Godlan. I'm the Director of Business Analytics. The topic today is our CSI Sightline Analytics content built on the Birst platform. So I'm going to start with a bit of an overview and a PowerPoint presentation. So let me pull this up here and go into slideshow mode. All right, so again, Pat Collette with Godlan. I'm going to cover the CSI Sightline Analytics QuickStart content that we have. Basically, the agenda for today is I'm going to give you a bit of a PowerPoint overview, and I'll move through that as quickly as I can. Stephanie's going to help me field any questions as we go through this, and we'll address them as we go. If there gets to be quite a few of them, then we'll kind of break and hold some of the questions to the end. Then I'll jump into live code and start showing our content and some feature function around Birst and et cetera. I'm also going to highlight the fact that this all sits within Infor OS, and Infor has recently delivered a new analytics widget. And so I will talk about how that takes advantage of how we can take advantage of our data model that supports this content to surface analytics throughout the user experience within Infor OS. So a big deal to our solution is the speed at which it can be deployed. So we can deploy it very quickly. We have pre-built not only dashboard and reporting content, but it's a comprehensive analytics solution, and available to deploy, I'll say, inside of a month to begin with. There may be some specific requirements a particular customer may have, but it deploys very quickly, and it encompasses not only the dashboard and reporting content, but a holistic approach to the data that is provisioned to Birst and made available not only for the standard reports, but also the ability to extend. So we believe it's intuitive and easy to use. Again, we'll be going through some of the pre-built dashboards and reports that are strategically designed to support, areas across your company by functional area. And it immediately supports the integration of the Infor OS and role-based pages throughout Infor OS, and I'll show some of that content a bit later. And then detailed data, we build the data set from the ground up. So it's not summarized data supporting a set of dashboards and reports. It is detailed Sightline data being brought in, so you can do everything from reporting a top-level KPI down to through mid-level graphs, charts and graphs, and also down to detailed reports. We believe it's easy to customize and extend. So we're not only delivering, we believe, a lot in terms of the content itself, but we designed it with extendability in mind and to meet the needs of your particular company. So we can bring in data from other sources should we need to. We can also integrate your user fields and perhaps custom data that you have. And I should mention that this will work for both cloud-based customers and on-premise customers. We have deployments for both. There is an investment in the Birst application if you're on-premise. But if you're somebody who's in the cloud with Sightline ERP, this comes a part of the holistic investment that you have in the whole platform, including Infor OS in general, Birst in particular, and also, of course, your Sightline ERP, and also the other aspects that support this, like the Infor data lake. So, and you can customize or adjust the reports that are based on attributes important to your business. And we have a defined requirements process, so if you do need to extend the offering, we've helped lots of customers through that process. And here's just a quick snippet of some of the dashboards that I'll be going through today. We have content from a broad range of data, again, from Sightline, and I'll talk about that here in just a second. And this shows an outline of the data set that we have today. So over time, we've expanded this. You, of course, have all your various master data coming from your sites, your bill to and ship to customers, item warehouse, your sales team, serialized units, vendors, warehouses, work centers, et cetera. And then a pretty deep and what we call a deep and broad set of data related to transactional data. for customer orders and down to the line level, shipments, invoicing down to the line level, AR and AP transactions, RMA information. We also have content related to financial reporting and general ledger. So I know that customers will make choices about, whether to use the Excel-based add-in for Sightline. Some other customers have more extensive consolidation requirements from a general ledger perspective. But we do support reporting for general ledger out of the box. It will take advantage of the types and the class codes from the chart of accounts, but we can also we offer and provide two sets of reporting. One is reports that'll work out of the box, and another set that just needs some simple adjustments to use your specific chart of accounts and the roll-up structures that are implied in that. We have jobs information, including jobs down to the detail level, including the scheduling information. Also the interrelationship of that job data with customer orders and projects, etc. Purchasing and down to the line level, including PO receipts, material transactions, item locations, and including if you have lot level inventory, we can report on that as well. A full complement of project reporting. So if you're using the project module and cost accumulations from related transactions, all of that is included. Opportunities and opportunity items, and then service from both the perspective of service contracts and a full complement of data set there, as well as the service orders and a relationship of those service orders back to the units or serialized items that might be associated with it. Quality reporting, MRR and quality testing information, QC transactions, QC items, receiving information, vendor RMA, and a full data set around that as well. And then some other areas like vendor contracts, we support doing, full currency handling up to the site level, as well as a framework for doing currency consolidation across multiple Sightline sites. Customer contracts, and then APS planning data is also included, as well as transfers. So again, a lot going on there, very comprehensive and robust data model. So data is kind of the lifeblood to all of this, whether it be the standard reports that we have on the dashboards and as well as the ability to extend this out into creating reporting content on Infor OS portal pages. Okay. What we also include is a comprehensive set of training. So it covers training in 3 functional areas. We have navigational training, so your users that are going to consume content, navigate the dashboards, navigate the reports. There's a set of training around that. There's training for what we call power user training that we include. And that training covers the power user training covers the creation of reporting and dashboards. And then we have admin training, which are all the various admin functions within Birst, but that also extends out into Infor OS as well, because essentially you're managing the overall security for Birst. Unless it's standalone Birst for on-premise customers, you're managing it within that same framework. And the training is very intuitive. It includes embedded videos. It includes a logical flow. It includes going out into Infor help text as a link, various links. It also includes a click-through. Basically, a user can click through and go through a tool called Navatic. That leads a user through the various functions and gives them descriptions about what they're seeing, what they're clicking through, what they're doing. And then there's also a parallel path for doing the training in live code as well. So a very comprehensive set of training that's self-led. And then we couple that with working sessions to talk about the specific questions that you might have and the specific needs of your organization. Okay. We talk about this supporting real life scenarios. So again, we feel like we deliver a lot in terms of standard content, both in terms of the data that's provisioned to Birst, the data that's made of, the reporting that's made available on the various dashboard and dashboard collections. But The reality is that as we talk with customers, I'm going to go through a specific sampling of this quickly, but individual customers will have specific needs depending on how they go to market, what their revenue model is, et cetera. So just some quick examples related to that, a machine tool manufacturer that had both GAAP and IFRS, sales reporting requirements. They sold core machines that were serialized. They do aftermarket parts and tooling. They offer service, contracts and service order and manage this under service orders. So when you look at the revenue stream, there's revenue and invoicing coming from traditional customer orders and shipments, service orders, as well as service contracts, and a need to pull all of that data together in a comprehensive set of revenue reporting. Steel manufacturer, where we get into some of the metals industry, and we find that there can be industry specific metrics a lot of times. And in this case, things that are, specific to the metals industry, things like hundredweight and tons, and an ability to report that across the entirety of their 12 sites that were on premise that were brought together in Birst. And then we also do find that certain customers want or need to integrate data from other sources. In this case, we are integrating CRM call data seamlessly within our data model as an extension of the data model. Big box retailer, where basically speed of transactions, volume of transactions are a big deal. Looking at the order fulfillment cycle of orders coming in from places like Home Depot and Lowe's and others, and the ability to do special reporting and metrics around that as well. Global contract manufacturers, so a company that basically contract manufacturers to other customers. The end items are specific to those customers. We went through a process of flattening out the bill of material and looking for purchase content within the bill of material, and also looked at those, looking at drivers for what would need to be a price increase to their customers, and looking at purchase cost trends against the purchase content within those end items versus the average selling price of the saleable end item. A gas and precision compression company, and looking at consolidated reporting for core sales, service, and project milestones. So an example of somebody who was managing their sales project with the project function, and also looking at some of the RMA related to their customers. So we'll get twists on the different modules that customers will use within Sightline. And again, the peripheral ones are typically projects or service contracts, et cetera, and a need to just make sure that we fully report that as well. And this is all supported by our data model. And I mentioned earlier that we're doing financial reporting. So out of the box, we have a number of standard P&L, balance sheet, and trial balance type reports, and ability to go down to detail. We of course have the main account code as well as the unit codes coming into Birst, and the ability to slice and dice the information as needed, and again be able to go down to ledger detail. So we can drop all of this in, out of the box. So just quickly on the offering, this is offered under a subscription basis to make it easy to get started. We go through what we call white glove deployment to get it deployed quickly and make sure everything's up functioning and validated and running. We offer the training pack that I described earlier as part of this. And then if you need to, we offer other implementation support. This title of this thing is about Sightline, our QuickStart, but we also offer a QuickStart around CPQ, EQ, and we have a lot of customers that are going through a configuration process, and those configurations are working through the configure, price, quote, and enterprise quoting functions. And there are nuances to processes, but we've got customers that are going through that cycle, wanting to do metrics around the quoting process, get into a deeper dive around the configuration. So one of the things that our content does is it goes a level deeper into the configurations, and it allows, and we've supported customers to do even tighter integration of reporting between this data and the Sightline data when they release orders from enterprise quoting into Sightline, and those become a series of customer order lines and jobs within Sightline and the ability to correlate that back to the configuration. Okay. And again, just a few screen prints on that content. I'll touch briefly on that content and go into it as I step through this. Okay. Similar offering there, smaller offering, but same structure in terms of white glove deployment, other support, and a subscription for the content. And then before I'm done here, I will go into InforOS. I will show the new feature function of the new widgets that are available. So a big deal to this is our core data model that we're supporting all of our burst reporting with is the same data model, again, that would support the ability to put content into those various portal pages and embed it within the user experience of going into InforOS in general, navigating to Birst, navigating to the ERP, navigating to other applications that they might have within that structure. And it stays in concert with the alignment of the InforOS and Birst security model. So it's well controlled from that perspective. And again, there's just some quick screen prints of the workspaces, but I'll be going in there and showing you this in action as well. Okay. And we offer similar deployment for the workspace offering. Okay, so I'm just going to transition now into Birst and into the application itself. So again, I've logged in through InforOS and within the overall framework. So every time I do a transaction in Sightline, every time I update master data, it gets automatically published out to the data lake, and the data lake is a data source for Birst. So there's kind of a one-time setup, and if you add additional content or data content over time, there's a methodology to set up the publishing to send that data to the data lake. That data gets ingested into Birst. Now, if you're on premise, then we would go interrogate the underlying SQL database and bring that data into Birst. But it's built with a comprehensive data model so that I can cover all the various functional areas of the business. And so this is not, there are some things at the tail end here at the bottom that are more demo-based content that we've done for specific scenarios. But basically everywhere from financial statements up to the top here is not just something I'm showing in a demo mode. It's the actual content that gets deployed into your environment. And again, Birst sits within this framework, and there's an ability to do things like, and I'll talk about how you can share reporting outside of Birst, but some of the other interactions with the other parts of InforOS are an ability to output and archive reports to Infor document management. I've already mentioned the interaction of the data lake and the publishing of data within this framework and making it available for Birst. So in terms of just content in general, the content takes advantage of standard Birst functionality. So it's leveraging the investment that you would have in Birst, and it's using that functionality in a standard way. So it's not from that perspective customized. And so when there are advancements in InforOS, advancements in Birst, we take advantage of all of that, like the new analytics widget that came out recently, or any other advancements that may come down the pike with Birst over time. And I would imagine some of those will run parallel with some of the other competitive solutions in terms of things like integration of AI, et cetera. So I'm not promising anything in terms of timeline there, but as things progress with the overall stack that Infor offers, those enhancements will become available with the monthly updates from Infor. So within the application itself, there's certain feature function. There's an ability to not only, you get a more dynamic experience if you log into Birst and you come in here and you do things like filtering on a dashboard for site or filtering on a dashboard for things like time frame. Okay, so we can have embedded filters, we can have other filtering techniques. So, but I can also share information out of here. So I can set up notifications on a scheduled basis, and I can share this with any interested party. And if I'm doing this at a dashboard level, it would be output as a printable PDF. If I do it more at the dashlet or report level, it could be output in various different formats, including things like Excel. I can also do this on a again, at this level with notifications at a report level, but I can also do things like do this in more of an alert fashion. So I can schedule based on not only just a schedule, but I can do it based on conditions. And if the conditions are met, the report gets sent. And if the conditions aren't met, it won't get sent. So essentially, if it needs to strategically get set, it'll show up in somebody's inbox. But if it doesn't, it won't clutter their inbox with information that isn't otherwise needed. So again, I can set different filtering techniques in here and do things on a scheduled basis, and I can also do things on an exception basis. Some other feature function within here is I can go back into the visualizer tool. So I'll talk more about this in a few minutes, but I can take myself right back into the reporting tool and start manipulating the report. And I'm presented with a save as function. And let's say this is 80% of what I need and I want to save this. I can quickly save it and make a variant of it pretty quickly and easily. The other thing I can do here is I can export out to, I can change my view selector. So I'll actually go over to another dashboard here quickly and show the capability of fact that I didn't program for this, but I can quickly change my view, and I can expand this, but I can quickly change my view into different, whether it be a bar chart, column-based, chart, etc. I didn't make these different charts and graphs. It's just an inherent function in here that I can look at this in different ways and decide which way in which I want to look at this to better tell me the story of what I'm looking at. Okay. The other thing that I can do is I can export things directly to Excel. So there's a direct interaction to Excel. And when I export this out to Excel, if it happens to be a crosstab report, which is what this is, which is basically months down the left-hand side and 5 years across the top. When I open this up in Excel, it will basically present itself as a true Excel pivot table if it was a crosstab report. So again, excuse me, go back here. I can present this here, and again, it's a true pivot table within Excel, and it interacts with Excel directly. Okay. It does not matter whether my report started as a graphical report. I can still export that data directly to the underlying data directly to Excel. Again, I can create notifications at this level. I can do a save as. So again, what you're trying to do is take advantage of the work that we've done within the standard content, do a save as, and start from a point at which you can just create a new report and jump off of that and save yourself, some amount of work. And the last thing I can do here is I can print reporting, but essentially output to a standard PDF is a better way to go and presents itself a little bit better. There are other techniques that I can use within the dashboards as well. I can decide that I want to take my mouse, drag it, highlight my top 3 customers based on a sort down of the top 10. And essentially what's happened is it's dynamically created a filter on the fly here where I could further search, select, pick, and filter for different customers. I can easily rewind this and start back from the beginning if I want to, etc. The other thing is there's an experience here of drilling down. So Birst has an extremely robust time series. We've taken advantage of all the dates that we're bringing out of Sightline. Any one of those dates becomes what is called an analyze by date. So if I look at and go into Visualizer here, and I look at my measure that I brought into here, of course, from a shipment perspective, I'm going to look at this by ship date. But if I was looking at an open customer order line item, I could look at it in terms of the customer order date for things like bookings, but I could also look at it in terms of due date for things like open backlog. The other thing I can do here, because of the way Birst, naturally builds the time series, and for any of you that have custom fiscal calendars, this will respect your we will integrate that and understand that we can take it directly from, the Sightline tables if that's the best place to get it. But we can use and respect that your custom fiscal calendar, and you can have your cake and eat it too in terms of a standard calendar and a custom fiscal calendar. But when I drill down through here, you'll see some natural progression of the ability to go from a year to a quarter down to a month down to a week start date and right on down to a day. And the reason why we can do that has everything to do with how we built the data model in our solution. Again, we brought in detailed data from Sightline. I tell people to think about it at the same level you think about it in the ERP, but then an ability to report obviously top level in terms of very top level KPIs, again, mid-level graphs or anywhere else, down to detail. So, and in this case, I can step my way back up the rabbit trail and start going back through progressive layers and then bring myself back in, look at the original, and then I can compress this and go back to my original view here. So again, we're taking advantage of the overall data set, the data coming out of Sightline. Every data in there becomes an available date every date in there becomes an available date to use within this data model. Okay. Various different topical areas within the content. So corporate level, top level metrics, but then getting down into things like sales management. And so here you're seeing an example of concepts like a rolling 12 months and looking at on-time delivery over a rolling 12-month period dynamically. The other thing is that I should mention that when we look at things like calculating on-time delivery or looking at order lines past due, we've not only brought the data out of Sightline, but we've also extended the data with thoughtful calculations and measures to do things like dynamically understanding what's past due, what was delivered late, et cetera. And different cuts and different ways to look at the data. And we have created an experience in some cases where I come from a top level metric for 2024. I bring myself over to another dashboard and I can start ratcheting through and looking at how it takes advantage of the surrounding attributes of a customer. In this case, looking at a customer type and then coming down to that specific customer and getting more granular on the on-time delivery. And then ease of navigation of coming back to the summary level by clicking a button and coming back. But you see again the time series and how Birst takes advantage of that and how our data model supports it by looking at things across years and months, and then an ability to start drilling down through. So we're starting at a product group level. We're going down from finished goods down to an item. These drill downs through can be customized within the tool and take advantage of the data model that we're supplying. And in this case, we've only gone down one tier, but I could start at the product level. And because of the way the data model's been built, I can come down through the product side or the item side, but then I can make my way over to the customer side. And we have examples of drill downs within the application that take you all the way down to an order or an order line level or and again, because of how the data model's been built, it'll go all the way down to the detail level. Okay. Another topical area within here is, I'll pick on production and planning. So we not only have relationships in here between, let's say, transactional data and the related master data that surrounds it, again, customers and items, et cetera, but also the relationships between the data sets. So I know this is a more detailed report. There's a little bit going on here, but basically I've drilled down into the job detail. And in this case, I'm gonna take this off from a filter perspective. And so we have relationships between what I'll say the transactional information as well within the data model. So you're seeing the relationship between the fact that I came down from a production perspective, but if I'm a company that releases my jobs with reference to customer orders, or if I do those underneath a project layer, I can see the customer order references within, I'm down at the job routing level here at the operation level, looking at very detailed information, looking at performance of things like parts per hour, planned parts per hour versus average parts per hour, job quantities, scrap, yields, and things of that nature. But I'm also seeing that and able to see that in context of my customer order. So if I pick on any customer order here, drag my mouse and release, I'm now seeing all the jobs that are related to that particular customer order. And if I had done this under the umbrella of a project, I would see those references as well. Okay. And again, different topical areas there. I could just keep going here. The feature function within this is very similar across, but different areas of, in this case, looking at inventory and looking at by family code, and then coming down into the, to a combined field for that has both the item number and the item description in it. So different techniques and different things that we've made available with the ability to kind of drill down and through the information and experience it again, top level with critical things that sort of jump off the page, but also then being able to go down into a level of detail. Quality, is another area. So I'm just picking on some different topical areas. The ability to look at testing and failures and failure rates and different metrics around quality, both inbound purchase content coming in, as well as the quality process from a production perspective. AR and AR management and bucketing of AR and looking at, past due amounts. The data in this test set has gotten a little old, so everything looks a bit past due. But looking at your top culprits for customers that are past due, different things like comparison to credit limits, aging tables and different bucketing of aging for current and 1 to 30, et cetera. And an ability to go down into different payment metrics and look at, my standard terms with a particular customer are this, but their average days to pay have been, off the charts, and managing things that way and different metrics around the collection process in this particular example. Maybe just a little bit more about things like projects. So again, a pretty comprehensive set of reporting around this, an ability to look at cost accumulation, number of projects, tasks that are past due, et cetera, and then an ability to drill down and through the project. So I'm going from one dashboard. Again, the overall concept that we've played into this is I need to look at things top level. I want to look at particular KPIs, but I want to take myself down and through the detail, which I think is critical to understanding, critical to taking action on the information. So Stephanie, I don't know if we have any questions floating around there yet, but I've gone through, some of the feature function of Birst, the different content areas, the broad range of content that we're attempting to cover here. And maybe I'll just pause and see if you've received any particular questions that need attention.
Sure, I've got one right now. Well, there were two, but the first one was people were wondering if the recording would be available, and that will go out at the end of the webinar. After we have time to process it. But the second question was regarding the speed of deployment. So what's the typical time from sign up to implementation?
We can drop the content in within the next, let's say somebody signs, we can drop the content in within the next week, essentially, just because of schedules. But we can get it in quickly. And then so basically you're up and running and into training within that. It's certainly within that first 30 days, but typically within the first couple of weeks, we would have dropped in the content, we would have transitioned to training, we would have started to deploy the training with your team, and we would have some initial project meetings. And then, if you wanted to start extending the solution, that's fine, and that would take on a potentially a life of its own. But the core content and the core application and the training and the making that available, I'll say certainly happens inside, the first month, but, I would say within the first week or two. So it goes in extremely quickly. We deploy the training content right thereafter, and we start driving through a process if there's any incremental requirements that a customer may have. Okay.
Perfect. That was a great answer. Thank you. Okay. And then there was one, I'm not quite sure what this means, but Birst licensing and entitlement.
Anybody who's in the cloud with the ERP, because of that overall purchase, is entitled. And so, and it does not matter, there's an ability to upgrade Birst to unlock other connectors, but you don't have to do that to basically use our content. Customers who are on premise would need to be licensed for Birst independently, but anybody who's in the cloud, they would have the requisite licensing automatically.
Okay, well, that kind of answers the next question that just came in, and that was, can the solution be deployed on-prem or in the cloud?
Yeah, well, I'll say that the solution can be deployed with relationship to an ERP that's on-prem. Birst itself is always deployed in the cloud. So it's a cloud-based solution. So part of the reason why we can get up and running quickly is, if somebody needed to license Birst, then Infor would deploy Birst, and they would deploy it in the cloud. Infor does not support on-premise deployments of Birst anymore. They did at one point. So that's a distinction. When I say in the cloud versus on-prem, I mean the ERP, and Birst is always itself deployed in the cloud. Okay.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
There's one more that just came in. Is the solution available for those who are in the Gov Cloud?
Yes. Yeah, we've done a number of deployments in GovCloud. There, we seem to have a little bit of a concentration in the aerospace and defense industry, but the answer is yes. Now, some of the functionality at an Infor OS level from Infor is a little different. It's the GovCloud functionality for Infor OS is a bit behind commercial cloud, but nonetheless, we've done a number of deployments for GovCloud. Okay. Anything else, Stephanie, that you had so far?
Awesome, we're caught up
Okay,
right now.
okay, thank you.
You're
So just
welcome.
one final thing in here about, again, I could cover other topical areas in here, but again, we're covering a very broad range. This just starts to show some examples of looking at different financial statements. There's a report writing tool called Designer within Birst, so it's not something else to buy. Excuse me, but and here you're seeing evidence of different styles of financial statements, both in summary and detail. And then we've got, income statement, balance sheet, and then again, ledger detail and ability to drill down into ledger detail to explain, the various reports. And we have a framework. So typically, when folks want to do structured financial statements, we would go about understanding their chart of accounts, understanding their first tier of subtotaling, and putting that into what's called custom attributes within Birst. And then from there, we can make, we have a platform to jump off of quickly to make some adjustments to the reports consistent with your specific chart of accounts. Otherwise, out of the box, again, you can get subtotaling in reports that function at the account class level and at the account type level. But typically that's not enough for what customers really want. And we have a matching set of reports for both and can support both. Okay. Just a little bit on the CPQ, EQ content. I'll go over there quickly and we'll look at some of the reporting. So again, I'll go to the dashboards for that. You see different things that we're measuring, the quote metrics, quotes won and lost, quote dollars, looking at things over time. Also an ability to look at the aging of quotes as you go through a process of managing quotes with customers. And then here you see an ability to kind of drill down and through, and we're looking at aging of quotes, in different time buckets. And then if we start kind of drilling down through the different types, and again, this is built the same way that our Sightline content is built, which is essentially down to the detail level. So you can get right on down to a specific quote or quote line level to see the information. So again, kind of top level metrics, top level summary, but an ability to kind of drill down and through. And then navigational aids to come back, to a top level. And again, some win-loss ratios and numbers here, and an ability again to look at things over rolling time frames, et cetera. Different crosstab type reports for win-loss percentages by rep in this case. Similar win-loss dollars by rep in this case. And then an ability to look at things across time, taking advantage again of the natural burst time series. And this is another depiction of looking at, win-loss percentages or a win percentage across time. And then there can be a little bbit going on here, and some of this can get into the bowels of somebody's configuration. But when you look at the data set within here, I can start looking at, I say it like this: how often did I sell or did I quote the brown seat? Some of this is a drill down from a top level and looking at it from a quote perspective, but then an ability to kind of look at the different metrics around different options taken by customers around the configuration process. Okay. So with that, I'm actually going to transition. I'll say transition out of Birst, but I'm going to go into some of the workspaces within here. So these are examples of the new Infor supplied analytics widget. There's also some examples here of you can still use what was the old widget, and the old widget fundamentally in kind of a framework represented the Birst report. And so it was done in a different way. But then the, these are KPIs under the old methodology, different types of reports. But when I go into this dashboard here, what we're looking at is the newer analytics widget and some greater flexibility around an ability to surface a mix of this content from different Birst data models. So again, a big deal to us being able to deploy this quickly for our customers is the data model or the underlying data. And so I have a sample page here of different types of widgets that we've surfaced. So within here, you're going into kind of an edit mode on the workspace. You can add a widget. And again, in the same general thought process and theme of using the standard Infor functionality, I can surface an analytics widget and add the widget to my page and save it. Then I go through a configuration process on that widget. And if I went back into Birst, just to kind of show this quickly, every time you build a report in Birst, there's fundamentally an underlying implied query against the data. So what you're doing within the, so any of these things on a dashboard, if I go back into Birst, there's an underlying query that's in here. And actually I need to go in edit mode. But if I come back here, my starting point for configuring this widget is to configure the widget, tell it whether this is for Birst or EPM in this case, it's Birst obviously. I would have done some setup to support what's called an application, which fundamentally points it back to a Birst space or data model. And when I come in here, I can click next. I'm going to go steal a query that I stole from a report that I had. So again, you don't have to build this query from scratch. It's a byproduct of building. It's a byproduct of using the data model that underlies our content, and it's a byproduct of just building a report in Birst. I'm going to paste this in here, tell it to validate. And then after that, it says successfully validated, click next, and then I get the beginnings of my visualization. There are a host of options that they're providing here for different chart types. Area, spline, different types of areas, waterfalls, pie charts, gauges, funnels, tables, etc. Okay, a donut. So various different functions in here. And then in the end, and I'm going to go back, I'm going to go into one that I've already completed. But if I go back into here and I go configure this, you'll see evidence of the query itself in here again. You'll see that I picked an area or spline type chart. There are some tweaks that you make to give it user-friendly names in terms of the types of quotes that you have. So a dealer quote versus a direct quote versus a total quote count. In here, I tell it different, I can tweak different things about the look and feel of my chart. Again, here's the query logic of my query and taking advantage of dynamic things like what is the current year? What is the current month? And it's dynamically bringing that in. So I get a fresh chart. And in this case, I get a fresh rolling 12-month chart. And when I roll to June, this will just take care of itself. Different things about different chart modes that I want to do to either minimize some of the axes and things of that nature. An ability to decide whether to display or not display values. Different conditional formatting doesn't apply to this type of chart, but if it was more of a table, it would apply. different context messaging that I can put in here. And then if I want to create a hyperlink to go drill across to other things. And so we've done that in some cases, and we're further advancing the ability to come back from this chart into, say, Birst, okay? And then different formatting with dollar symbols and things of that nature, okay? So again, it starts with I have this core data model that supports this content. We can drop it in very quickly as part of our quick start. We're leveraging that for all the different reporting that we have across inside Birst itself. But then we're also making this a part of the user experience within, and you can extend this as you need or want to make it a part of the user experience of, I'm going to come into a sales dashboard, and yeah, they have an ability to make their way into the various applications that I've deployed. But then I can bring myself in, I can see the analytic content that I've displayed here commingled with, so this is these two are widgets from the analytics widgets, and so is this. But then the rest of this is content that is kind of intermixed with other content that speaks to the interaction with Sightline, or perhaps things like workflow, et cetera. So it becomes part of the overall user experience. So with that, I'm a little bit early, but I think I've covered the ground that I wanted to today, and I think this allows to save time for any trailing questions that we may have that I can answer at this point.
Thank you, Pat. Just watching to see if there are any other questions that come in. I think that you have answered everything well.
Sorry, there was no other questions, it sounded like.
There are no other questions right now. I was
Okay.
waiting for a second to see if someone would put one in the chat, but seems like everyone is satisfied.
Okay. All right. Well, if there's no other questions, I want to thank everybody for attending. You can follow up with Stephanie or myself if you have further interest and you have some questions that you'd like to discuss offline. We've had this solution for quite a while now. We've grown it over time, and it's served we have quite a few customers that are using the solution, and it's served them well. So happy to answer any questions after the fact as well. And I think Stephanie was going to share the recording with those that were interested in getting it.
That is correct. I'll send out the link soon.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Again, I appreciate your time. You have a great rest of the day, a great rest of the week, and thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
Okay. Bye now.